What's up, horror fan? Welcome back to the channel. So for today's daily episode, we have an update, a film coming from A24 starring none other than Sydney Sweeney, adding now another horror film to her catalog of horror films. I'm wondering if this is going to be her shtick, her genre that she's going to want to stick to for a while, or if she's eventually going to want to branch out. But I'm happy as she's sticking with it. Glad she's going to be in another horror film. This one I do have some high hopes for, just on the fact of the source material is pretty dark, pretty bad. And I don't say bad as in a bad way, but bad as in a good way when it comes to when you think of a horror film. So again, I'm hoping they stick to the source material, but we have an update on that. And here we go again. Oh boy, we now have more information on a casting update for Dexter Resurrection. So let's start getting into some of these details. So as I mentioned, A24 will be adapting Poe's The Masque of the Red Death with Sydney Sweeney in talks to star. Now, it's just in talks, but I'm hoping this one pans out. I'm hoping she does eventually come to an agreement. I hope A24 and her come to an agreement for her to star in this film. So the classic Edgar Allan Poe tale of the Masque of the Red Death is headed back to the screen with a new movie adaptation from A24 and Picture Start. Deadline reports today. Additionally, the site notes that Sydney Sweeney, who, if you didn't know, if you haven't seen it, was previously in a film called Immaculate. Side note, seen the film. I enjoyed the film. I know it really wasn't for everybody, but as I've mentioned before, the religious horror films, the possession, demonic possession, exorcism type films, that's my favorite subgenre when it comes to horror. So I enjoyed Immaculate for what it was. I know it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but if you haven't seen it, I would recommend checking it out for yourself. Don't listen to critics. Don't listen to other people. Always check out a film for yourself and see if you like it. I enjoyed it, but again, that's just me. Charlie Pullinger is writing and directing The Masque of the Red Death for A24, said to be a wildly revisionist and darkly comedic take on the short story. Deadline details in today's report: the original Poe short story follows a prince who attempts to avoid a dangerous plague known as the Red Death by hiding in his abbey. Details behind this new take are being kept under wraps. Sources say the film will shoot this year. Poe's The Masque of the Red Death was originally published in 1842, and the tale was notably brought to the big screen as part of the Corman Poe cycle back in 1964. Roger Corman directed the adaptation for American International Pictures with Vincent Price starring. I mean, and if anyone, I can't imagine if you're a horror fan on any level, you haven't heard of Vincent Price and you haven't seen maybe this film. And maybe if you're new to horror, you didn't know about this previous film, adaptation from 1964. But if you haven't, check it out. I think Vincent Price was one of those pioneers when it comes to horror. So again, always go back, check out those older films. That they are worth a take. Again, don't forget they are a product of their time. Watch it considering it's 1964. Don't go into it with the lens of a 2024 vision and think, yeah, this is just absolutely stupid. Again, watch it for what it is, for the time period it was created. Brian Kepler wrote on BD back in 2021, quote, "For many, The Masque of the Red Death is the apex of the Corman Poe series. It is certainly one of the most visually stunning horror films ever made, thanks in large part to the extraordinary cinematography by Nicholas Roeg." Vincent Price reveals in his role as the only completely irredeemable villain of the cycle, Prince Prospero, who humiliates members of his court and terrorizes his subjects for his own entertainment. Kemper continues, "This film holds particularly relevance to today as we again face with plague and the indiscriminate nature of death. It is a powerful reminder of imminent mortality and the fact that death will eventually come for us all. It's because the plague tale is sadly so relevant today that A24 is likely bringing The Masque of the Red Death back to the screen, with talks of a darkly comedic take on the story piquing our interest. Sydney Sweeney is one of the hottest young stars in Hollywood today, and the pairing of Sweeney, Poe, and A24 is nothing if not a compelling one. Stay tuned for more." So I would agree. Sweeney is one of those ones, right? She's an up-and-coming actress. I think she's been in some great stuff. I'm glad to see this is going to be another horror movie that she'll be in. And I am glad to see that we are going to get a new iteration of The Masque of the Red Death. Again, it's just one of those stories that I think could use a new interpretation as far as a modern take. Now, I would love to see this one not get too gory, but maybe mid-level gore and definitely that level of violence to it, as you would expect for a horror film. Now, the fact that it's being considered and deemed darkly comedic take, you've heard me say many times before, I am not one for comedy when it comes to horror films. I know that is a subgenre. There are horror comedies, and I do appreciate the horror films that know that it goes into it knowing it's a horror comedy, and it kind of makes fun of itself for being that. So those ones I appreciate. Those ones I go into it with my eyes wide open, knowing that there's going to be a comedic value to it. But an example I'll give to you is like Terrifier 3. When you watch Terrifier 1 and 2, you're not thinking comedy. When you go watch Terrifier 3, they started instituting some comedy into it for Art's character, and I just felt that it was not necessary. It didn't feel it didn't feel natural for Art to be that comedic aspect, that comedic relief for the film, nor did I even think it needed one. And that's what ruined Terrifier 3 for me, was that comedic aspect to it. This one, though, again, if I'm going into it knowing that that's the overall take that they're going for, I'm going into it with my eyes wide open. I know what I'm getting myself into. So I am looking forward to this one. This here is just a picture from the 1964 film. So we'll get a modern take on this one. It's supposed to start shooting this year. So depending upon when they start and obviously when they complete it, we may or may not get a teaser trailer or full trailer sometime this year. And if we do, we will make sure to do a review on that and bring it to you. All right, so going into our next topic, so you guys know I am doing a weekly review episode breakdown of Dexter Original Sin. Last week was an off week. They didn't air an episode, but they will be airing an episode this week, which I believe will be episode 7 of Dexter Original Sin. And if you've been watching my series, my weekly breakdowns, I'm not a fan of the Original Sin series prequel. I don't think it's necessary. I think all it's doing is just giving us a visual aspect to everything we already know, everything we've already seen in the original Dexter series. And some of the things that they're even showing us here, we actually saw in the original Dexter series with Michael C. Hall playing his younger self, right? So I don't think the prequel was necessary. Now we do know that once this prequel wraps up, we will be getting in June, I think it's still June, Dexter Resurrection with Michael C. Hall returning. And where Dexter Original Sin, if you don't know, spoiler, if you don't know, Dexter Original Sin starts where Dexter New Blood kind of ended. He's rushed to the hospital, and while he's in the hospital, they're trying to save his life, he has this flash before your eyes type situation, and that brings us into the prequel. So I'd imagine where the prequel will end is he somehow is saved in the hospital, and then resurrection begins, or it will be some level of a time jump after that fact. So here we have some casting news. Uma Thurman joins Dexter Resurrection. So the subheadline here is Uma Thurman has joined the cast of Showtime's Dexter Resurrection to play a billionaire's head of security. So let's jump into some of these details here. For 8 seasons and 96 episodes from 2006 to 2013, the series Dexter ran on Showtime, telling the story of Dexter Morgan, a blood spatter analyst for the Miami Metro Police Department. So we know all this information. So let's jump down here. So as you can see, Clyde Phillips was the showrunner on Dexter for the first 4 seasons, and in 2021, he and Showtime brought us the revival series Dexter New Blood. And I feel the reason Dexter New Blood was done, and this has been reported since the original show ended in 2013, that one of the reasons why Dexter New Blood was done is because of the pushback and unsatisfaction that fans had with how they ended the original series. So they did Dexter New Blood in hopes of kind of not an apology letter to the fans, but trying to right the wrong with the fans and say, hey, we understand you didn't like the way that ended, so let's try to bring it back. We'll do a one and done type situation with Dexter New Blood. But even when they ended Dexter New Blood, when that ended, we believed that Dexter was dead, and that was still and being shot by Harrison, his son, an older version of his son, and even that didn't sit well with fans. Fans pushed back even on that. So I think that's why we're getting all this new Dexter stuff, personally, in my opinion. But that's not the case. Showtime has tasked Phillips with continuing to build the Dexter franchise with a prequel series, Dexter Original Sin, which we've been talking about on a weekly basis, which premiered last month. And a New Blood follow-up called Dexter Resurrection, heading for June. Yeah, so it's still going for a June release date. Filming on Dexter Resurrection is currently underway, and Deadline has just revealed that one of the new additions to the cast is Uma Thurman. I'd imagine you all know who Uma Thurman is. One of the major roles that she's been known for is in Kill Bill. Michael C. Hall, who played Dexter Morgan in the original series and Dexter New Blood, and also provides the in-character narration for Dexter Original Sin, is back in the lead for Dexter Resurrection. Hall is joined by the cast by fellow series regulars David Zayas, Jack Alcott, and James Remmer, with Zayas back in the role of Angel Batista, who worked with Dexter in the Miami Metro Police Department back in the day. Alcott reprising his Dexter New Blood role of Dexter's son Harrison, and Remner returning as Dexter's adoptive father Harry Morgan. So it's gonna, I almost feel like we're now just, no pun intended, bleeding the Dexter franchise. Now we're creating this whole Dexter verse, and they just think it's very unnecessary. The actors who have played these roles, like Batista and Harry Morgan, the original Harry Morgan from the first series. It's been 12 years since they've been in these roles. So unless they're going to do, again, some level of a time jump from the last time we've seen at least Batista, because Harry's just a figment of his imagination. So unless we're going to see a time jump somewhere to explain the age jump for Batista and for Harrison, it's just not going to make sense. It's just not going to be like, oh, it's just been 10 minutes or it's just been a few days or a few weeks, right? So Uma Thurman is playing Charlie, the head of security for mysterious billionaire Leon Prater, a former special ops officer. Charlie worked various high-level private security jobs before taking on her position as the resourceful and meticulous right-hand woman for Prater. Chris McCarthy, and just goes on to talk about a little more quotes, and that's where it ends. So, like I said, I'm not. Great. I kind of think this might just be I don't want what we call like a money grab, where you're just trying to push things out just to make money off the name. I think this might just be one of those castings where, hey, Uma Thurman, come watch Dexter Resurrection. We're getting some big names casted to the show, right? Garner some attention to it. I think that's part of this. Based on the description we just read, it could be that she's part of the primary story, because as we've seen in Dexter Original Sin, and as we saw throughout the original Dexter series, there was the overarching story of that season, and then you had all these kind of like sub stories happening, whether it was Dexter's trying to track down a serial killer, or the Miami Metro's trying to track down a serial killer from episode 1 through 10, and then while that's happening, Dexter's off killing off other people off these old case files, right? So I'm wondering if it's going to be the same thing, because Original Sin's working out kind of the same way, so I'm imagining this will be the same. Dexter Resurrection will be something similar. So as I mentioned earlier, there's got to be some level of a time jump, because you can't just be waking up in the hospital and then all of a sudden everyone's finding out Dexter's alive, because that'd be kind of boring if he's just laying up in the hospital this whole time. If you're making a Dexter show, you expect Dexter to be out there, killing people. He's a serial killer, right? So we'll have to wait and see. We have June, so we still have another 4 or 5 months to go before this series premieres, and then we'll have to wait and see what else the Dexterverse will bring us. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for today's daily episode. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about Uma Thurman joining Dexter Resurrection. Are you interested in Dexter Resurrection, or are you done? Are you just done with the whole Dexter verse? You were done with it after the original series, and you're just not interested in all these follow-up shows that are taking place, a decade well after the original series. And also let us know what you think about the Masque of the Red Death potentially starring Sydney Sweeney. I think it's a great casting. Hopefully they can get it done and she can star in it. And if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And to all my existing subscribers and new subscribers, I thank you for all the support. It is greatly appreciated. Trying to put out that daily content for y'all to enjoy. That's going to do it for today, and we will see you at the next one. Peace.